cabinets full of papers. We had plastic furniture because the building is built after the 60s. So we can be sure that as the things were upgraded and stuff, we had plastic furniture. We also had lots of probably leftover wooden furniture. So would you agree that all those contents were probably in that building?
Sure. Why not?
Okay. The next logical step then is chemicals and oils. There were restaurants at the top of one of the towers. So there would have been oils there, cooking oils. There would have been chemicals like drain cleaners. And in the restrooms, there would have been drain cleaners with sulfur in them. Some kind of, probably some heavy-duty industrial strength cleaners.
Sure.
All right. Then we add the airplane crashing through the building, through the core of the building, in at least one case. Now, one of the weird things about the design of this building is that there were no stairwells in the corners like a normal building. All of the stairwells, all of the elevators, and unfortunately, all of the fire control pipes for the water to put the fire out are all in the core of the building. So there were stories about like a foot of water in the lobby of both buildings from all the leaking from the fire control, fire suppression system.
Okay.
So the fire suppression system would not have been active above the point where the airplanes crashed. Agreed?
Okay.
Okay. Now, when you have the airplane crash in, we now have our source of aluminum for your thermite. We have the steel for the thermite. We have chemicals that can dissolve both aluminum and steel. And we have chemicals that have sulfur in them. Now, I really appreciate seeing the movie tonight because I knew that the heat was high in there because of all that wood getting turned into charcoal. So in effect, what you ended up with after about a half hour to an hour was a high-intensity charcoal fire in these buildings. Much higher heat than people would get just out of kerosene. Kerosene by itself can't do it, but it makes a wonderful, wonderful barbecue lighter. Dangerous as heck, but it'll work as something to start a fire.
Answer your first question because it's an important one. Can thermite, nanothermite that you saw, be created by the combination of planes hitting steel? Well, let's look at this very carefully. We're talking about small dual-layered chips, red on one side, gray on the other. In the red side is nanoparticles of iron oxide, which is not steel, it's elemental iron, and aluminum powder. Powder, not airplane parts, but powder. Intimately mixed in the perfect percentage, 3/4 iron oxide to 1/4 aluminum powder to make the ratio called thermite. But this is nanothermite. These pieces are set in an organic bed of oxygen, silica, carbon. Very specifically, this is built from the atomic scale up. This is nanotechnology. It's made only in the most sophisticated defense contracting laboratories. It doesn't happen by accident from aluminum planes hitting steel structures and falling down.
You have heard about the Hindenburg problem with paint. Hindenburg problem with paint. The Hindenburg ended up with some aluminum paint on the outside of it, and they accidentally, without intending to, built essentially a rocket fuel on the skin of the Hindenburg. There was a wonderful PBS show that went into the details of that, and they actually went through an analysis where they were able to actually recreate it on Mythbusters.
Okay.
So,
how about the next question? Yes. I'm sorry. Come on.
Just real quick, 30 seconds, 15 seconds more. My real question is, what other sources of sulfur were in the building? Like sodium lamps maybe, or other things like that.
We're talking about
that could have created a thermitic type reaction to get the heat even higher.
Right. Well, elemental sulfur is what was found and documented by FEMA in the ends of the beams, which were described as partially evaporated, which no fires can accomplish. And the first responders and iron workers, etc., have never seen Swiss cheese looking steel, which takes temperatures exceeding 2,800 degrees. Fires only getting to be about 1,600 degrees maximum. So, can you step up to the microphone if you have a question? Really?
No.
Okay. Well, go ahead, ma'am.
Well, my comment to this gentleman is, so if he has those questions about the tube, tower, I'm turning around this way.
Sure.
Okay. But then what about building 7, which had no plane hitting it? So that's just my comment there, which you can answer. Pardon?
Good question. That suggests there may be something in the building already. Officially, the Twin Towers had a 4-hour fire rating. So the fire department people thought they had at least a couple hours to get out of there. The second thing is that the trusses underneath the floors were covered with an insulation, originally asbestos, but the EPA made them stop using asbestos on the later floors. So that lighter insulation was stripped off by the airplanes going through. It also was stripped off by the kerosene part of the explosion. So it collapsed a lot faster than expected, and Building 7 exceeded the 4-hour rating.
Oh my.
Well, yeah, this is the official story about the trusses. The buildings were 2- and 3-hour rated, although that's not particularly a point of disagreement at all. And you said Building 7 was exceeded that rating. Why did you mention that?
Because the building finally went down at about 6 o'clock or so that night.
5:20.
Okay, 5:20, fair enough. I'll go with 5:20, because I was on the Central Time watching it. But the fire itself started around the time of the collapse of the buildings, or maybe a little bit before from the airplanes. I'm not quite sure what started the fire in 7, but it had been burning for most of the day.
Yes, and you saw the fires that were theoretically to have caused Building 7's destruction, scattered here and there, and you saw that they were out actually an hour before the collapse of this building, which pulls the rug out from underneath the story, among many other rugs that can be pulled out from underneath that story.
They were still pouring water on it when it collapsed.
Okay, thanks. It's extraordinary. So what could create those temperatures, and how did they last?
I'd like to ask him a question. I think you could just let it go. You've asked him about 3 or 4
we
questions
do need,
already. Do you think you could just share the microphone?
The answer to that question, and I don't know.
You weren't in line, so I didn't know you wanted.
Well, if he wants to answer your question, he can. I just thought that maybe there might be some other people that might want to ask some questions. You know.